All right, so today we're going to really dig into this FinTech magazine article about digital wallets.
Okay.
And they're predicting that these things are going to, like, totally transform global finance by 2025.
Hmm.
Like, are we seriously on the edge of some kind of, like, financial revolution?
Well, it certainly seems that way. I mean, it's really incredible just how fast everything's changing.
Right.
And it's not just about like, swapping out cash and cards for phones.
Yeah.
This is like a whole different way of interacting with money.
Yeah. Nicholas Holt from Marquetta had a pretty good quote in this article.
Okay.
He said, the future of payments is digital, and digital wallets will continue to dominate markets across the world as consumers demand more innovation and convenience in payments and banking.
Hmm.
So, like, is that really what's happening, though? Is it really just like customers are demanding this and that's why it's taking off?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think consumer demand's a huge part of it.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Tapping your phone is just way faster than like digging around for your wallet.
Yeah.
And it's usually a lot safer too.
Right.
But it goes deeper than that.
Right.
Digital wallets, like they open up all these possibilities that you couldn't do with like old school payments.
So speaking of like different ways of doing things, the article mentions that like Asia Pacific is way ahead in digital wallet adoption,
Yeah.
like especially China. They've got Alipay and WeChat Pay,
Yeah.
and they're handling billions of transactions every single day.
It's crazy.
It's like they're living in the future of finance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is that they were just a lot faster to adopt mobile technology in general, you know,
No.
but it's more than that. There's what the article calls super wallets.
Yeah.
They've become like totally ingrained in everyday life there.
Yeah.
It's not just paying for things. It's social media, ordering food, booking flights. It's like pretty much everything. That
Yeah.
level of integration is just not something we see in a lot of other parts of the world. Yeah.
So do you think these super wallets are like the future for the rest of us too?
Mm-hmm.
Or are there like roadblocks that maybe we haven't thought about?
Well, the article does highlight a few potential challenges, especially in places like the EU.
Okay.
They're a lot more cautious about data privacy and how fintech stuff gets regulated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're basically handing over your entire financial life to one platform,
Right.
there are definitely some questions there.
And it's interesting. The article actually says that the UK is further along than the US in using digital wallets, especially for like contactless payments.
Interesting.
Like, why do you think that is?
Well, sometimes it's not about the tech itself, it's more about consumer habits and trust.
Okay.
Contactless payments just took off earlier in the UK, so people are just used to it.
Right.
I think it shows that even in developed markets, like there are all these subtle differences in how these trends play out.
Totally. Okay, so we've got all these developed markets moving toward digital wallets. But what about places that don't even have like a solid financial infrastructure to start with? Can digital wallets actually be a solution there?
Well, the article points to some interesting examples in emerging markets.
Okay.
Like in Africa and Latin America.
Yeah.
They're actually using mobile-first solutions to tackle the problems they have with financial inclusion. In fact, Pietro Candela from Alipay, plus he calls digital wallets the spark of financial and mobile inclusion.
Interesting.
Especially for these populations.
Yeah.
Because they can basically skip over the whole traditional banking system.
So it sounds like we've got this uneven global adoption rate and all these cultural differences. And then we've got these like worries about data privacy.
Right.
Like with all of that in mind, what do you think is the biggest question about the future of digital wallets?
Well, I think the key question is, how do we find the right balance?
Right.
We've got all this amazing convenience and innovation.
Right.
But we also need security and privacy and, responsible financial oversight.
Right. Yeah. And the answer to that question, it's probably going to look different in different parts of the world.
So we've got convenience, we've got security, cultural differences, regulatory concerns.
Right.
It's like a whole whirlwind of factors.
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested in is like, what's the actual impact of all this? Like, what does it mean for people like you and me and for businesses that are trying to keep up?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting.
Okay.
So the article predicts that digital wallets are going to handle over 50% of global e-commerce by 2025.
Wow.
So think about that. What does that mean for businesses that haven't adapted their payment systems? Ryan O'Halloran from Airwallex, he made a really good point.
Okay.
He said that businesses that don't offer digital wallet options,
Right.
They're basically cutting themselves off from a huge
Yeah.
and rapidly growing market segment.
Okay, so it's not just about like keeping up with the competition.
Right,
It's
yeah.
about understanding how customer behavior is changing. Exactly, and it goes beyond just like buying stuff online too.
Okay.
The article suggests that digital wallets could revolutionize sectors like healthcare and travel as well.
Now, that's something I can get behind.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where all your medical records and your travel documents are all just like right there on your phone. No more digging through files.
Yeah.
No more worrying about losing paper tickets.
Right.
Like, it would just streamline everything.
Ew.
So digital wallets could be a game changer for tons of industries.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away,
Okay.
are there like any downsides to all this convenience?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? We
Okay.
get a more streamlined, personalized experience,
Right.
but we need to be aware of the potential risks.
Okay.
And that's what we'll explore next.
So we were just talking about like the potential downsides of all this, you know?
Right.
And I think like one of the biggest ones that comes to mind for me is data privacy. Like, it seems a little scary to be handing over so much personal and financial information to these companies, you know?
It's definitely a valid concern. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like this constant trade-off, right? Like, we
Yeah.
want the convenience, but at what cost?
Right.
As these platforms gather more and more data about us, like
Right.
what we buy, like even where we are.
Yeah.
You have to wonder, like, who has access to all that information
Right.
and what are they doing with it?
Yeah, the article mentioned that the EU is being really careful about how they regulate digital wallets.
Hmm.
Do you think that's the right approach, or is it like holding back innovation?
It's a tough question. I think regulation is always tricky. Too much and you stifle creativity, you know?
Right.
But too little and consumers are left vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
The EU's focus on data privacy, I think it's probably influenced by their history and their values.
Okay.
It's definitely a different approach than, say, China,
Yeah.
where they've really prioritized rapid technological development.
And that difference is really obvious when you look at those super wallets we talked about.
Right.
Like in China, they're so integrated into daily life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You could do everything from paying for groceries to investing in stocks.
All in one app.
Yeah, all in one app.
But do you think that level of integration could be a problem?
Hmm.
I mean, it gives a lot of power to a small number of tech companies.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if those companies decided to censor certain types of transactions
Right.
or restrict access to services based on your data.
That's a scary thought.
It raises questions about, like, financial freedom and control.
Yeah, it's like your whole financial life is tied to a social media platform,
Exactly.
which is not a thought I love.
I know, right?
Okay, so let's step back from the big picture for a minute
Okay.
and talk about the potential impact on specific sectors. The article mentioned healthcare and travel as prime examples.
Right.
Like, what kind of changes do you actually see happening in those areas?
Well, let's start with healthcare. Imagine a world where your medical records, insurance, information, payment details, it's all securely stored in your digital wallet. It could make the whole patient experience so much smoother,
Right.
from booking appointments to managing prescriptions to paying for services.
Yeah, no more carrying around like mountains of paperwork
Right.
or trying to remember like a million different logins.
Exactly.
Wouldn't that require a huge overhaul of the current systems?
It would be a significant shift for sure.
Yeah.
But think about the potential benefits,
Okay.
especially when it comes to data security.
Okay.
Healthcare data is like a prime target for cyber attacks.
Right.
And digital wallets could offer a much stronger layer of protection.
Okay, so healthcare seems like a pretty natural fit for digital wallet integration.
Yeah.
What about travel?
Well, think about all the stuff you need when you travel.
Yeah.
Your passport, boarding pass, hotel reservations, maybe even visas.
Right.
Now imagine having all of that digitally stored and accessible on your phone. It would streamline everything.
From check-in to customs to boarding.
Yeah. Those long lines at the airport would definitely be a lot less stressful.
Right.
But beyond just convenience, are there other possibilities in the travel sector?
The article talked about personalized recommendations.
Okay.
Like your digital wallet could learn what kind of trips you like and then suggest itineraries, destinations,
Yeah.
local experiences
Wow.
tailored to your interests.
Okay.
It could even help you with things like currency exchange or travel insurance.
All within the same app?
Yeah, all in one place.
That's pretty cool.
It could really take the travel experience to the next level.
But like we've been saying, there are two sides to every coin.
Right.
So while digital wallets offer all this convenience and efficiency,
Yeah.
what about the potential downsides, specifically in sectors like healthcare and travel?
Well, one concern is that it could actually increase financial exclusion. Not everyone have access to a smartphone or reliable internet.
Right.
So that could create a barrier for people who are already marginalized. Yeah, that's a really important point.
It is.
We can't let the excitement over new technology make us forget about equity.
Right.
It's crucial to make sure that everyone benefits from this shift to a digital-first financial system.
Absolutely. And beyond access, there's the issue of trust.
Okay.
People need to feel confident that their data is safe.
Right.
And that these platforms are reliable.
Yeah.
If there are big security breaches or if people's data gets misused,
Right.
it could erode public trust and make people hesitant to use digital wallets.
So we've got accessibility, security, and trust as key factors. But what about the broader societal implications?
Yeah.
We talked about the potential for super wallets to concentrate power and influence.
Yeah.
Like, how do you see that playing out in the long run?
That's a really big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we want a future where a few tech companies control all the money and information?
Right.
Or do we want a more decentralized and democratic system?
So we've been talking about this idea of like super wallets,
Right.
and how they could like concentrate so much power and influence.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about like the future of finance and technology.
It does.
Like if these platforms become the main way we handle our money, what does that actually mean for us as individuals
Right.
and for society as a whole?
Well, it's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got the potential for things to get a lot more efficient,
Right.
more transparent, maybe even easier to access financial services.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, you have to think about the possibility of like constant surveillance, more control, and less privacy.
It's like we're at this fork in the road,
Yeah.
and we have to choose a path.
A tough choice.
Do we go for convenience and efficiency, even if it means giving up some control over our data?
Right.
Or do we prioritize privacy and autonomy, even if it means we missed out on some of the cool stuff these technologies can do?
Those are the big questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers. The article talked about how different cultures and histories influence how different places approach this stuff.
Okay.
Like the EU's emphasis on data privacy.
Right.
That probably comes from their experiences with totalitarian regimes in the past.
Right. So it's like a reminder that technology isn't neutral.
Exactly.
It's shaped by the people who create it and the people who use it.
And the values that they hold.
Yeah. And as digital wallets become a bigger part of our lives,
Right.
they're going to reflect all of those social and political and economic forces.
Oh, for sure. And I think that brings us to a really important point.
Yeah.
Technology is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right.
It's up to us as individuals and as a society to decide how we want to use it.
So we have to have these conversations about the potential benefits and risks of digital wallets.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that these technologies are actually serving us
Right.
and not the other way around. Okay, so we've talked about how digital wallets could streamline healthcare
Right.
and revolutionize travel and make financial services more personalized. But what about the potential downsides?
Yeah.
We've touched on data privacy and financial exclusion,
Right.
but are there other things we should be worried about?
I think one concern that doesn't get enough attention is the potential for digital wallets to make existing inequalities even worse. Like if access to financial services and opportunities is increasingly tied to these digital platforms, what happens to the people who don't have the resources or the skills to use them?
Right. It's like a digital divide, but for finance.
Exactly.
We have to make sure that this shift to a digital-first world
Yeah.
doesn't leave anyone behind.
Absolutely. It's about making sure that everyone has the chance to benefit from these innovations.
Right. Not just the people who are already privileged.
Exactly.
And beyond those like immediate concerns, there are some even deeper questions we could ask. Like, how will digital wallets change how we understand money itself?
That's an interesting thought.
Like, if we're not physically handling cash anymore,
Right.
will it change how we think about value? Will we be more or less responsible with our spending
Yeah.
when it's just a few taps on a screen?
It's hard to say for sure,
Right.
but it's something we need to be aware of.
Yeah.
This move towards digital currencies and payment systems.
Right.
It could have a huge impact on how we think about money and debt and even our relationship with material things.
It seems like every time technology takes a big leap forward,
Yeah.
we end up with new challenges and ethical dilemmas.
It's true.
And digital wallets are no different.
Right.
But even with all this uncertainty, one thing's for sure.
What's that?
We're in the middle of a financial revolution.
We are.
And it's up to us to decide what the future looks like.
And that future is being shaped by the choices we're making today.
Right.
Do we choose convenience over privacy?
Yeah.
Efficiency over equity?
These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves.
We do as we navigate this new landscape.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the world of digital wallets.
It has.
And I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
We've talked about the potential benefits and risks and the huge impact this technology could have on society.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is that we've raised questions
Yeah.
and hopefully sparked some curiosity and inspired you, the listener,
Right.
to keep exploring this topic
Yeah.
and to join the conversations that are going to shape the future of finance.
The future's being written right now.
It is.
And it's up to all of us to decide what it's going to look like.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, stay curious.